Very warm welcome if you just joined us. You're watching Prime Time Morning on Monday the 18th of January.
Now, in a 2009 survey by a World Bank group on how easy it is to do business in the country, Indonesia ranked poorly behind countries such as Rwanda, Ethiopia and Kenya.
But the new chief of Indonesia's Investment Coordinating Board plans to change that.
Gita Wirjawan, barely 3 months on the job, knows he has a lot of work ahead of him. In an interview with Suzanne Jung, she asked him about the changes he plans to make in the country's investment environment, and began by asking him if the 30% drop in Indonesia's foreign investment in the first 3 quarters of 2009 signaled in a crisis in foreign investment.
Certainly not. I think a good chunk of that drop is attributable to the global crisis, the economic crisis or the financial crisis that basically took place in October, November of 2008, and I think that had some effect on many countries in the world, and Indonesia was a beneficiary of that. But I think looking forward at the rate that we're seeing pretty sustained recovery in some of the developed markets, I think there's optimism with respect to seeing a positive trajectory, not just with respect to the foreign direct investment, but I think we're likely to see a continuation of the domestic contribution of capital.
But to make Indonesia a more attractive market for foreign investors, I know the government is doing a lot, especially BKPM as well, rolling out some programs. You said in the first 100 days of office, one of the focus would be the PTSP, which is the one-stop shop system. How is that going along so far, the progress?
It's quite good. I mean, PTSP or the one-stop shop involves the delegation of signatories / authorities to some extent from 14 or 15 different ministries, and we've gotten all the sign-offs necessary, and I'm actually in the process of issuing the policy which will basically reflect this delegation of authority. Now, getting the signatories, as hard as it may seem, is actually the easier part. I think the harder part is actually socializing this with the actual actors, and those actors and participants are actually in the regional offices and whatever, so that they understand that one-stop shop actually takes place in all the different 33 different provinces, and not to mention at the lower regency levels, which are in the hundreds. You can basically carve out our approach into 3 or 4 different phases. I think the first phase is really for us to focus on the low-hanging fruits. The low-hanging fruits are the ones that are easy to get because people do have issues and they have preferences. And the low-hanging fruits, unfortunately or fortunately, relate to the natural resource sector, and this involves people who have taken a view of where commodities prices are going to go. And Indonesia is rich of commodities. Second phase, I think, involves how we're going to be able to reinvest the time, effort, and funds for purposes of embellishing the soft infrastructure, i.e. the educational infrastructure, so that we can have a continuing process of combing the policies which are noisy or disturbing or even unproductive. Then I think the third phase is really how Indonesia could do industrialization on a bigger scale, and like perhaps Korea, perhaps China, or some other countries in Asia. And the way to do it is to do a few things. One is to make sure that you have the necessary educational infrastructure. Number 2, you have the ability to basically consider providing incentives, whether it is fiscal or non-fiscal. And you have a continuation of the combing of the policies, embellishing the policies so that we become much more attractive than what we have been and than what we are now. Then I think beyond that, we can start thinking about Indonesia, how we can position ourselves to be, a knowledge economy and all that.
Give us an idea. I mean, what does it mean to foreign investors with the PTSP in place? What kind of a difference will they see?
Yeah. The simple difference is that, for company that would like to hire foreign workers, until today, they would have to basically get a recommendation from the Ministry of Labor and come to us. We'll issue the business license or permit or what have you. Then they'll go back to the Ministry of Labor to get the actual approval for the foreign workers to come and work in Indonesia. That has been decompressed to just one step. Where they come to us, we will be able to issue the license for the foreign workers at the BKPM office. Another simplification is the delegation of authority from the Immigration Office, which lies below or within the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights. That has been delegated to us so that, for visa and all that, for the foreign workers, we are able to do that. Now, that's in policy stage. Now, the implementation stage, I think, is a different, kind of animal, which I think, like I said earlier, will involve socialization with the actual participants and actors in Indonesia. So those are two examples of how we are actually going to be able to simplify the investment process in Indonesia.
What about infrastructure and, the usual complaint from investors of how they get unreliable supplies of electricity and fuel? How are these being addressed? Because these are important factors as well.
That is being addressed. Actually, some of that is being addressed in the first 100 days program. But I think if you take a longer view than 100 days, I think you will see some value unlocking, whether it relates to the government's ability to look at the tariff regime or whether it relates to the government's ability to and capacity to and willingness to basically relook at the financing scheme, because some of that relates to the degree to which we can provide guarantees and all that, which has been a complaint by the financiers and also people who would like to invest in the infrastructure projects in the context of electricity. But beyond that, there is also toll roads, bridges, and other basic infrastructures, including ports and airports. I think we are quite proactively looking into how we can unlock value in those areas.
So a lot of plans are in the works right now, and measures are being rolled out to change things around, and it all needs to come together to package Indonesia to project this image and reputation that you want. But how do you intend to appeal to the international community when there is still that nagging problem where there's a perception at the high level of ground in the country?
Sure. Perception has been there about Indonesia, whether good or bad, and it will continue. Now, I think the view that I would encourage people like you and others to take is whether or not we have the wherewithal to remedy whatever mistakes we've made or we might have made. I have taken the view that I think there are enough people within the apparatus who are working very hard to make sure that we have the capacity to remedy the mistakes and address the perception issue.
And we've got part 2 of that coming up tomorrow on the program, so don't miss that with Suzanne Jung.
That's right. Same time, 8:50 a.m. Singapore Hong Kong time, right here on Prime Time Morning tomorrow. On that note, we'll take off for a short break. Stay with us.